Man, we about to talk about it. Let's talk about it. But before we get into it, I am a special guest speaker at UGA in Griffin, Georgia. I'm a special guest speaker at UGA in Griffin, Georgia today, 1 o'clock p.m. I know it's last notice. I know it's the last minute. But for those of you that live in Griffin, Georgia, if you're rocking with me, show up today. I'll be speaking at UGA. It's a college campus, first college campus ever that I'll be speaking at. So it's a big deal. It's dope. I know I'm rough right now, but my energy is so vibrant right now that I wanted to go live and talk to you guys about this ongoing debate that I keep having with my brothers in them. My brothers that claim to be indigenous Americans, in which they are and we are. If you are here in America and you were born in America, 9 times out of 10, your roots trace back to the indigenous of America. So let's just talk about that and go ahead and clear a few things up. So please forgive me, because the next time you see me, you know, I'll be groomed. But let's talk about it now while the energy is vibrant. But again, I'll be speaking at UGA. It's a college down here in Griffin, Georgia. I'll be speaking at 1 o'clock today. And we're going to talk about it. Not what we're about to talk about now, but we're just going to talk about like different things. Like my segment, I call it workshop. I call it toolkit. And what do I mean by that? Because in order to receive a knowledge that is being presented to you, you have to first learn the value of what it is that you're about to receive so that you can treat it of value. What do I mean by that? If I put you in a house and just say, here's a house, but you don't know anything about being on your own, you don't know anything about paying bills and responsibilities and mortgages and financial literacy and how to save and how to get ahead, then you're not going to appreciate that home that I'm putting you in. So what I'm saying is we can give all the knowledge that we want to give, but if people don't first know how to receive the knowledge, let alone what to do with the knowledge, they won't receive it appropriately and they won't apply it. And we all know that applied knowledge is wisdom. Yeah. So now let's get into it. So check this out. Here's the thing. The indigenous American is the original African. Now, some of you will get on here and you will disagree with me, but you will not be able to provide me any proof other than something that is Eurocentric. Because every single person that I've been debating with about this, I ain't gonna even say debate with, because as my master teacher says, I debate with my equals. All others are students. So the ones that I've been having this type of conversation with, I don't really consider my equal in intellect, because I can tell based on your disposition that you're not really savvy in your studies. You're biased in your studies. And it's almost like asking a person to talk about the Bible, but they only using the Bible to dispute the Bible. You can't use the Bible to dispute the Bible. You have to go outside of the Bible and you have to look for other sources and use those sources to kind of back your claim, if that's what you want to do. That's what you call real scholarship. So what I'm saying is, if we gonna talk about this whole indigenous Native American thing, we are that. And I think y'all get it misconstrued, because I think y'all think because we have a love for Africa that we don't have a love for the indigenous American, that we don't have a love for America, but we are that. We built this nation. So it's not like I'm going to piss on my forefathers and say that I'm not one of them. I know my blood runs through them, but you got to go back to the origin of existence and the origin of where it all began. Based on anthropology, historian, and where her scholarship and evidence, it all traces back to Africa. It ain't something that I want. It ain't something that I don't want. It's just what it is. And I be asking, like, why y'all give us a hard time about showing love to Africa, but y'all ain't giving a hard time to these Moors that show love for Spain? I'm trying to understand that. Make that make sense. So if you know anything about the Bering Strait, then you know that life started in Africa. Through the Bering Strait, they crossed over. A lot of the Native and the indigenous Americans that are here, they migrated here from Siberia, South Africa, South America. So those that migrated from South Africa, they went over into South America. From South America, they moved their way up into the Americas. From the Americas, they moved across the land. Same thing when they left the Bering Strait, they crossed over into Russia, they crossed over into Asia, and then from Asia they went over into Canada, and from Canada they descended down into the Americas, and then they populated the top. So my question is, for you overzealous indigenous that got a problem with us showing love for Africa, where are your reservations? Where are your casinos? What do you love so much about America? Now, mind you, the geography is great. I've been in all 48 states and every major city in this nation. So the geography is great. I can definitely identify and say it's indigenous. The energy is indigenous. What you see is indigenous. When you go to like Washington, even Idaho, even Montana, even Wisconsin, when you go to the North and the South Dakotas, like you see the indigenous. But if you know anything about the Mississippi River is actually the Nile River. When you know anything about the mountains, let's just talk about Memphis, Tennessee. You got to know that Memphis is one of the oldest cities in Kemet. As a matter of fact, Lower Kemet. So that's where the term Memphis, Tennessee was coined from. It came from Egypt or Kemet. So you got to know that there's no coincidence why, if you ever been to Memphis, shout out to the Memphis Grizzlies. So if you've ever been to Memphis, then you know that there's a pyramid that sits on the water, that sits by the bridge, that separates Memphis, Tennessee from West Memphis, Arkansas. It's not a coincidence there's a pyramid that sits right there called Bass Fish Pro. That's not a coincidence. That's not a coincidence at all. So you got to understand that when you look at the money, when you look at the eagle on the back of the money, and then you look at the same, or the falcon or whatnot, eagle, falcon, whatever, when you look at the same bird, they coined that from Kemet. I done heard some of these brothers even say, we were born in America and then we migrated to Africa. Nigga, prove that. Prove that. You're going to have to prove that. Because the largest pyramid is in Mexico. But you got to understand why it's in Mexico. Because when the South Africans migrated to South America, they moved up into Mexico. And that's when they began to create the big giant stone skulls that you see. The black faces that you see. So you got to realize America is our home. Africa is our throne. But the world belongs to us. So when I hear brothers talking about we shouldn't show love for Africa, how not? That's about like having a whole house, but you only show love to one room. Why would I show love to one room when the whole house is mine? That don't make sense to me. Somebody got to make that make sense to me. So we got to stop all that. Why it's okay for the Moors to identify with Spain, but brothers and sisters that want to identify with Africa, that's a problem. What you hate about Africa? What Africa do to you personally? What it do to you? And what has America done for you? What your reservation and your casino? You sound like the Moors. They say the courts belong to them, but yet they can't even get themselves off of probation. They can't get themselves off of probation. And I know that to be facts. So you sound like one of them. This your land. But where your reservation? Huh? Where your reparations? Huh? You out here trying to get it like all of us, man. Let's be for real. Why ain't no indigenous Americans on the money? It's almost like the Hebrews and the Christians. They want to quote the Bible. Well, why y'all don't control the publishing? Why y'all don't own the copyrights? You try to see yourself in it, but anybody that read that Bible can see themselves in it if they really want to see themselves in it. Therefore, it goes back to saying, when you're trying to dispute something, you can't use the source to discredit the source. That's a contradiction. That's not scholarly. So you got to go to the outside sources. And so the evidence that you claim that y'all have, it's all Eurocentric. Because y'all going to talk about who wrote it. So if I'm saying his name right, a lot of that stuff done been spelled. Yeah, we know they got pyramids out there in the Grand Canyon. We know that. But we also know that the original indigenous American is the African. We know that. We don't hate Africa. They ask what we learn from it, but yet the whole world depend on Africa for resources. Ain't no diamonds here. Where the gold at? Yeah, they went to California for the gold rush, but where the gold at? We know all the resources in Africa. We know that them Asians over there buying up Africa because they know better. We know that any wise man that's here would be trying to get land over there too. We know that President Mugabe said, y'all come back. America, please come back. We gonna give y'all all the land that y'all want. You gotta understand the fact that we are indentured servants, because you gotta know that we had a history long before slavery. The fact that we are here, and it initially started based on indentured servitude, because we was only supposed to come over here and help build a nation. We wasn't supposed to get kidnapped and separated from our families forever. That's what you gotta know. So what they're doing now is they're saying, yo, y'all got the knowledge, y'all got the wisdom, y'all got the understanding, bring it back here and start building here. But because of what you see, you believe that Africa really po for real. You really believe that for real. You believe because you see flies flying around these po babies, like flies flying around me right now. You believe because you see flies flying around these po babies, like it ain't no fan in the background that you can't see that's blowing. Since when did flies just start landing like that? Come on, man. Use your common sense. Use your brain. Y'all know they control the media. You know we don't control the media, so therefore they control what we see. And while I'm talking about what they control, let's talk about this. And I'm going to make a separate video for this, but I want to touch on this right now. Because I don't want y'all buying into that buffoonery. I don't want y'all buying into that foolishness. And make sure you talk to your child. Don't you know these motherfuckers don't win as far as with this ABC agenda to even say that Malcolm X was a rainbow? They starting to put him in the children's history book now, trying to say that he was bisexual. Come on, man. We know that ain't true. But he who writes history controls the narrative. So if we ain't writing our own history and they write it for us, then that means we got to go on what they got to show us. Same thing with Kemet. When you look at Kemet, we know that that's black. But what they doing in modern day? They trying to carve and niche differently and turn them light skin, bright skin, and trying to say that Cleopatra was white and all this and that and biracial and all this kind of shit. Man, come on, man. They writing the narrative and all we doing is just sit back bickering. Man, let's do something for real. What we talking about for real? But all I want to say is we are the indigenous American, but the indigenous American orchestrated from Africa. That's the origin. It's not what I want. It's not what I don't want. It just is what it is. Everything has a beginning. But for y'all to just say we just rooted up here and then we went to Africa and influenced Africa, nigga, that's ass backward. That's asinine to me. Bring your proof. Just bring the proof. Let's talk about genetics. Let's talk about the origin. Let's talk about geography. Let's talk about the Bering Strait. Let's talk about it. Before the world separated and we was all one landmass. We was all one. So, niggas in Africa back then we're calling Africa Africa. We know that Africa is a European name. We know it was named after a European. We know that. America was named after the same. We know that. So let's not play word semantics. We ain't gonna play that. We ain't gonna play that. So let's just stick to what we talking about. Before the world or before the globe separated, before the platonic shift, before the plate shifted, we know that everything was global, but Africans and African wasn't calling it Africa. Americans and America wasn't calling America. Everything was about territory. Well, if you know anything about migration, then you know the original form of migration all started with the animals. What do I mean by that? Back then, our ancestors hunted animals for shelter. They hunted animals for food. But they wasn't really big on meat eating. But what they did do was observe. And they noticed that the animals would move at a certain time. They would migrate. Why? Because animals have been here longer, so they kind of know how things work. They can smell the weather before the weather gets here. So therefore they knew to migrate and move before the storm hit. They knew that. We put two and two together. And we said, well, hold on. We depend on them for shelter. We depend on them for food. They move and we need to move with them. That's the original form of migration. That's how we ended up populating different parts of the land masses. But we didn't wake up one day and say, this Africa, this America, this Asia, this Russia, this Australia. We didn't do that. When we came into a certain knowledge, then we started drawing lines, just like gangbangers. The east side is the east side, the west is the west. You know that you can't cross a certain path in a certain territory. You know that. If you stay out there in the watch, you know that. It's so big that you got the Crips in the blood practically in the same area. But they know what lines to cross, what barriers not to cross. You know that. So with that being said, that's where it all started. But see, we done became so brainwashed with modern intellect that we forget common sense. Cause you can become so religious that you become too religious. You can become too much of anything. You become too much of anything. That ain't never good. So all that to say that. We can be divided as long as y'all want to stay divided. But what the hell we gonna do? Because we ain't doing shit. We the only ones with this identity crisis. The Asians know who they are. Europeans know who they are. The Hispanic know who they are. We the only one going back and forth. I'm from Spain. I'm from Africa. Nigga, we from all of this shit. Nigga, we they parents. They all come from us. They all want to be like us. We inspire the world. The world don't inspire us. Know that. So when you realize your worth and you realize who you are, you'll stop debating with your brothers and sisters and instead start asking yourself, yo, we all been bamboozled and tricked in some sort of way. We all done have been oppressed in some sort of way. So how will we rise above this oppression? That's what we need to be talking about. And that's what I'm going to be talking about when I show up at 1 o'clock to this college campus. And on that note, thank y'all for checking in. Peace.